You finally did it, buddy. You dragged yourself back from death itself, and all hail the King of the North! The King of the North, Jon Snow! Oh, my God. I don't even know where to begin this. Like, this is the longest episode of Game of Thrones that's ever aired. It's 69 minutes long. Pretty much every character is seen in this episode. Every plot point is addressed. Every location is seen. There are some exceptions. We don't get to see what's going on in Castle Black, or what's up with Brienne, or Pod, or Jorah. We don't get to see anything there. I kind of figured we weren't getting anything with Jorah, but, you know, he's one of my favorite characters, so I'd like to see at least one thing with him in the last episode. But that's okay, because we get so much other shit. And I know that everybody always says this at the end of every Game of Thrones season, like, oh man, this is the turning point, this is where shit gets real. It happened at the end of Season 2, where it's like, oh man, White Walker Army, this is gonna be crazy, shit's getting real in Season 3. But this is something that I really feel that not only this episode, but all of Season 6 really represented was HBO really finishing off the last dregs of the book series. You know, it's like, basically, I could see the higher-ups in HBO looking at Season 6 like this. Like, okay, we're gonna take the remaining plot threads of the book, the stuff that we haven't used yet, and we're gonna have to add in our own stuff in order to get a solid season out of it, but we can probably squeeze one more solid season out of book material. But after that, after Season 6, Season 7, and beyond, shit's getting real because we just have to go along with what we see at this point. And it's funny because the title of the episode is The Winds of Winter, which is the title of George R.R. Martin's next book, which hasn't been released yet. So it's kind of funny when the television show that's based off the book series is using a title from a book that hasn't been released yet in that book series. I know, but yeah, this is, they're not even trying to hint at us, like, oh man, like the White Army at the end of Season 2, it's like, oh, we're hinting at something might happen in Season 3, but it didn't really end up going down that way. This is not even trying to hint at it. This is just like, no, the wheels are spinning now, shit's happening, so get ready. And this is the thing that kicks it all off. So, the first 15 minutes of this episode, really fucking eerie and creepy. It's Cersei and Loras Tyrell's trial at the Sept of Baelor. We have the 7 Septons there, we have the High Sparrow that are there, and Loras' trial goes off pretty much without a hitch. He pretty much just confesses to all his crimes. I mean, I don't really care much about Loras, honestly. He was kind of interesting when Renly was still around, but after Renly died, and I know he did some stuff after that, just not really an interesting character to me. But next up is Cersei's trial, and she's not there, and no one knows really what's going on, and we get these really, no one's talking, or very few people are talking throughout the entire first 15, 20 minutes of this episode, and it's just these out-of-context scenes where we see Cersei in the Red Keep, and she's getting this really cool new outfit put on, and Tommen's in his chambers, and he's like, I'm ready to go to the trial, and Frankenmountain stops him at the door, and he's like, child shall not pass. This is like keeping, you know, Tommen safe. You know, that's what Cersei sent the Mountain to do. It's like, oh shit, something's gonna happen here. It's just so much build-up, you know, just so much quiet build-up for such a huge payoff. So Pycelle and Lancel Lannister get led away by children in the city. They just get, Lancel gets led into like catacombs beneath the Sept of Baelor, and Pycelle gets led into Qyburn's laboratory by these children where he was brutally stabbed to death, and Qyburn's looking there and he's just like, you know what, you know, for someone of your stature, I would really prefer you not die in such a dank, dark place, but sometimes the old have to be killed before you can really start with the new. So Pycelle is killed, and you know what, I'm surprised he lasted this long, honestly speaking. You know, I thought he was going to die a while back. Pycelle, to me, always seemed like kind of like a shifty, backstabbing motherfucker, so I'm kind of glad he's dead, honestly speaking. So yeah, Pycelle is brutally stabbed to death, and then we have Lancel Lannister, who gets led into this whole plan is planned out perfectly, and Cersei's back. You know, I never liked Cersei, but she's back. All that shit that got taken away from her, in fact, that's a good theme of this episode, where everything that was, like, at the end of Season 5, you know, Cersei, Walk of Atonement, Jon Snow stabbed to death, fucking Arya turned blind, like, all that shit makes a complete 180 now, and everybody, they're all back on top now. They've all reclaimed the status or the abilities that they've had earlier, and they are fucking back, and they are taking their much-needed vengeance for the most part. So we call back to Season 2, where we had the huge cache of wildfire underneath King's Landing. It's now directly underneath the Sept of Baelor, and it gets ignited, and in the entire fucking fucking Sept of Baelor just explodes. Just fucking Armageddon, green fire, everybody inside burnt to fucking ash. Like, their bones are not even left. And my only complaint about this is the High Sparrow doesn't have a very painful death in the process. Because that was the one guy I was really expecting his death to be really dramatic, really played out. But it isn't. It isn't. We do get one scene, and there's like a few frames of it you have to kind of pause, but as the fire is erupting underneath the floor and the entire Sept of Baelor is taken up in green fire, you see like 1 or 2 frames of the High Sparrow, and his skin just gets burnt off, and for a brief moment you could see like just nothing but a skeleton before that is reduced to nothing but fire and ash as well. So, you know, a very appropriate way for him to go out. I just wished it would have been a little bit more dramatic for him of all the shit he's pulled so far. Everybody else in the Sept of Baelor dies. In the first 15-20 minutes of this episode, we get like 7 or 8 deaths. So Kevon Lannister, Tywin's brother, he's dead. Marjorie Tyrell's dead. Loras Tyrell is dead. Fucking Mace Tyrell is dead. Marjorie's and Loras' father, which he didn't really do much, but I'm gonna miss him just because he got a goddamn nice mustache. Really nice mustache on Mace. So he's gone. Sorry, Mace. Mustache will be missed. Oh man, who the hell's? I think that's all. I think that's all that happens in the actual Sept of Baelor. I mean, all the sparrows die, a bunch of King's Landing citizens die, an entire, like, it's an explosion that radiates outward, you know, a bunch of guys get crushed by a fucking bell, you know, so a lot of death and misery at the hands of Cersei here, but she gives 0 fucks. Although I will say it calls back to that scene earlier in the season where Olenna was talking to her, and Olenna basically says, like, oh, what are you gonna do? Basically, just, like, kill all these people yourself, you know, or reduce the entire city, you know, for your own, you know, your own means. And at the time when she says that, it's just like, oh, well, that's impossible. There's no way. Cersei's basically alone at this point. Or not alone, but she doesn't have a lot of followers. There's really nothing else she can do at this point. But I'm feeling like, you know, she took Olenna's advice to heart, and she's like, why can't I kill everyone? And here we are now. So, yeah, Cersei wins. Well, maybe not exactly, because we still have one more death in King's Landing before we move on, and it's honestly probably the most eerie death out of the entire episode, because you just don't, I mean, I didn't see it coming, maybe you did, but not like that, certainly not like that. So you have Tommen in his chambers, and he's just like looking out the window at the destruction of the Sept of Baelor, and it's just, he's speechless. You know, this is a kid, he's still very young, he still doesn't know so much about the world and stuff, and now he's witnessed not only the only girl that's ever really, he's only really loved, dead, and all the stuff like the High Sparrow, everything he gave his full willingness and cooperation to is now all gone. And you have the scene where he's just looking out the window, he takes off his crown, and he walks off camera, and the camera stays on the open window for a disturbing amount of time, like, you know, longer than it should be. You know, and I'm sitting there, and I'm kind of like watching it, but I'm also on my like laptop, and I'm thinking like, all right, so now they're going to cut away to another scene, or like we're going to see what's going on in Dorne or something. So I'm like not even really paying attention. And then after like 15 or 20 seconds of just utter silence, Tommen just walks back into frame, steps on top of the windowsill, and just falls right out the window. He doesn't do it dramatic or anything like that. He just walks up and just falls right off the fucking Red Keep and dies. So, fare thee well, King Tommen Baratheon, first of your name, the most manipulated child ever. Now you're only being manipulated by the cement. So, that's something there. Yeah, which, of course, that just needed to move on forward anyway, because in Daenerys invades Westeros, I don't think Tommen's going to be much of a use there. His use was to be manipulated by the High Sparrow and cause some serious shit, which ended up, I mean, honestly, Cersei kind of led to the death of Tommen, if you really think about it, because, you know, she's the one that caught me. I don't know how Cersei thought Tommen would respond to that, or anything like that. I mean, there was nobody there with Tommen after the death of everybody that, you know, he cared about, so it's like, it's just like, I don't know what Cersei expected here. I don't know what Cersei expected Tommen to just be like, okay, you know, you killed Marjorie, you killed all these people, it's cool though, it's fine, I'm alright now. You know, I think Cersei at some level had to understand, you know, what kind of action Tommen was going to take here. So, that's the big point of the episode, and that kind of leads into the very end of it, but we do cover a bunch of other characters in this episode. We cover Sam and Gilly's journey to Old Town. They finally arrive at Old Town. We get to see that place, which I was really, you know, I was anticipating Old Town, because I saw some sketches of it and, like, the histories and lore lore, and it looked like a really cool place with high tower and everything. So we finally get to see Old Town, really neat place. As they're approaching, before we even get to know what's happening later on, we see a bunch of white ravens leaving the high tower. And at first I'm looking at it like, are those what I think they are? I thought they were like, you know, just like smoke or something else at first, but I'm just like, no, those are white fucking ravens. And as we all know, white ravens, they only appeared like one other time in the series, but white ravens are only supposed to deliver like the most important messages throughout the Seven Kingdoms from the Citadel. The last time we saw one was, I believe, the first episode of season 2, The North Remembers, where it was announced that, oh, summer has now ended officially. The Citadel made the announcement. So I'm seeing the white ravens, and I assumed it was going to be, you know, because I don't think it ever specifically said like they only released the white ravens for the changing of the seasons. I think it was only for really important things, so maybe something else really important was happening. I don't know, but we find out later in the episode that yes, in fact, winter has indeed come. So yeah, that's once again, like I said, changing shit around. We've been talking about that winter is coming bullshit for 5 seasons now. 6 seasons actually, honestly, this season included, but now it's finally hitting you know it's going down. You know it's going down when winter is finally fucking here, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, the Citadel scene with Sam and Gilly doesn't really amount to really much. It's this really awkward scene that had me laughing quite a bit, where you had Sam walking into, I guess it's the high tower, where you see this one maester, kind of like the secretary. He's just sitting there with these huge freaking, you know, eyeglass monocle things, you know, reading a book, and Sam just kind of, he's still wearing like his Night's Watch outfit, you know, and Gilly's with him with his son, and he just like walks up and he's just like, hi, I'm Samuel. I'm from Castle Black, and I'm here to train to be a maester. How you doing? And apparently Castle Black hasn't been keeping the Citadel up to date with any of this shit, because the maester's looking at his book and he's just like, apparently Jeor Mormont was the, you know, head of Castle, the Lord Commander of Castle Black. You know, what's this Jon Snow shit? And he's like, oh well, he died. I'm like, all right, well, Maester Aemon hasn't informed of us. So I was like, oh, he got sick and he died too. And he's just like, this is most irregular. And but you know, he's a nice dude. He doesn't just shoo him away. He actually gives him a little bit more of, I guess, respect than I would have expected in that situation. Because in this situation, it's like, we have no idea why you're here. We were given no information for this, but we'll let you in. You can look at the library, and you'll have to discuss this with the High Maester until that time comes. So Sam gets to go into the grand library of the Maesters in Old Town, and it's this really awesome scene where Sam this is everything he's ever dreamed of. You know, he's finally seeing like the vast collection of all the knowledge in Westeros, and he's right there, and in this huge fucking library with like all these different, like, you know, like little figurines and statues and like planets and shit. Like, this is the study of like everything in the known world. It's right here. Moving on, I'm trying to take out like the smaller scenes first. I guess I'll talk about the scene in Dorne next, because that keys into something else. So we cut over to Dorne, where we see Elias Sand meet with Olenna from House Tyrell, which I guess is now the head of House Tyrell, considering Mace is now dead. And this is like a few days, I guess, later after the death of everybody in the Sept of Baelor, because she's like aware of everything, and she knows everything that happened. She knows that, you know, her son and grandchildren are undead by Cersei's hand, and Olenna Sand offers her vengeance. It's just like an alliance with Dorne, alliance Tyrells and Martells. It sounds similar. We should already be kind of, you know, allies, right? So let's do this, and let's take our vengeance on Cersei. And Olenna is just like, well, how are we really going to do that? Or how can you really assure that we would get our vengeance? And at that point, cues up, Varys walks in, and he's like, oh, we're with fire and blood. Well, that's how we're going to do it. So Varys, this was the location of his expedition he made a few episodes back. He arrived in Dorne to get the allegiance of, I guess, I don't know if Varys was planning on just the Martells, or it's just like, oh shit, okay, well, the Tyrells too? Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. So now we have Martells and Tyrells helping out Daenerys' cause, along with the Greyjoys. So, like I said, shit's going down. So now I guess cut over to the twins. I guess I'll cover, where we have Walder Frey. He's holding this big banquet for everybody involved, you know, for taking the Riverlands. He's like, yeah, we took the Riverlands! The Tullys held it for 1,000 years. Now they're the Freys, bitch! And Jaime and Bronn are there, and Jaime just has this scene with Walder Frey where he's just like, you did shit. You did absolutely fuck all here. You know, when was the last time you actually had a real fight? You know, everything that you've done, this battle with the Blackfish, the fucking Red Wedding, it's all been through manipulation. You've never actually done any of this shit yourself. You always just stand behind and let other people do this, and you always hinge on these kind of like underhanded tactics. And Jamie doesn't say outright, you know, you're gonna fucking die soon, but that's what he's basically saying. You're gonna fucking die soon, Walter Frey. And spoiler alert, he does, in a way that I did not see coming at all. He gets killed, his children get killed as well. We got Lothor, and Black Walter dies and gets baked into a pie, of which Walter Frey then eats, and it's all due to Arya Stark. Arya Stark is back in Westeros, and she is apparently mastered the, you know, the faceless technique, and now she's right next to Frey, and she's like, oh, the last thing you're going to see is a smiling Stark as you die. Oh, and by the way, side note, Arya has gone full-on psycho. Like, she has. Like, the look, the expression she gives Walter Frey as he dies, as, you know, she just straight up just slits his fucking throat, just watches him bleed out, and this look on her face, and then this music that plays in the background, this fucking orchestra sting is like something out of it's like a serial killer slasher theme. It's just like this dun, 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 and Arya's just smiling, so happy. Like, Maisie Williams plays her character so fucking well. I love her to death. But yeah, she's full-on psychopath now. But she's back in Westeros, that's good. Now I guess I'll cover the brief scene we get beyond the wall. We have Benjen Stark arriving at the wall with Bran and Mira, and he's like, I can't continue any further because there's, you know, beyond than just the actual physical structure of the wall, which is intimidating enough, which the First Man created. It's also has some really potent magic, you know, bore into the core of the wall, which makes it so beings like Benjen cannot just easily, you know, he can't get over it, basically. So now he leaves it up to Bran and Mira to find some way over the wall, and Benjen goes back into the haunted forest, and Bran's just like, oh, well, what are you gonna do? And I honestly speaking, Benjen's just like, I'm just gonna do whatever I have to do to prepare for the upcoming war. So I guess I take that to mean, you know, I'm only one guy, if you can even call me a guy anymore, but I'm going to try to kill as many Whites and White Walkers as possible on my end before this shit goes down. I hope we get to see him again next season. I always liked Benjen, even back in Season 1, I really liked him, so I hope we get to see more of him. Even I could see him totally making, like, one last stand. You know, here comes the White Walker army, and Benjen, like, makes one last stand and takes out a few of them, maybe kills a few White Walkers before he just gets completely, like, shredded by the invading force. But it would be pretty cool to see him again one more time. But the main point of this scene is something that has been fan theory in the GOT universe for years, and that is the mother and the father of Jon Snow. It's confirmed, bitches! But, so Bran's at the Godswood tree. It might actually be the same Godswood tree that Jon and Sam made their Night Watch vows back in Season 1. It might possibly be the same one that's right next to the wall, so I would assume it is. And so Bran is now the Three-Eyed Raven, so he activates this power, and he goes back into, like, the past world that he was in earlier, where you had younger Ned Stark, you know, reaching the Tower of Joy, and, you know, Lyanna, his sister's in there, apparently being raped by Rhaegar Targaryen. This time, Bran is not a complete idiot and doesn't, you know, call out to his father, you know. So, you know, we now get to see actually what happens, the rest of the story, because it got interrupted. So Lyanna is not being brutally butchered by Rhaegar. She is, you know, giving birth. She just gave birth to a small child, and it looks like through complications from this birth, you know, she's bleeding everywhere. She's going to die. That's what she ended up dying from. Rhaegar did not brutally rape her and then kill her in the process, as we were led to believe. So she gives her newborn baby over to Ned and whispers something in his ear, and we can't hear all of it, but it's basically like, you know, Robert can never find out about the birth of this child. You know what he'll do. And so Ned takes it and raises it as his own bastard child, and it is in fact Jon Snow. So Jon Snow is the child of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen. It would make sense why Lyanna wouldn't want Robert to know about that, because you know what happened after Robert took the throne and happened to all the Targaryens after that. He wanted them all fucking dead, you know, for obvious reasons, right? So, yeah, and then also you gotta consider that Rhaegar was also maybe one of the persons that actually might have initiated Robert's rebellion, because he kidnapped Lyanna, which might not have actually been kidnapping now that we actually know about this whole thing. But yeah, I know a lot of people are already big fans of this theory, but yeah, L plus R does indeed equal a J. But now, moving on right along to Jon Snow's part in the story, we move over to Winterfell, which has now been fully reclaimed from the Boltons. The Boltons are now, I guess, an extinct house because, you know, Roose and Ramsay, they're both dead. All the, you know, Bolton forces are now dead. So if any Boltons are still alive, not enough to actually make one of the houses. So we now have Jon and Sansa that are talking for a little bit, and Sansa's basically like, well, Jon says to her, you know, you're the lady of Winterfell. You have to, because you're an actual Stark, I'm not, so you have to be the one in charge here. They're not going to listen to me. I'm just a bastard. And Sansa's just like, well, you're a Stark to me. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, wait a second. At this point, couldn't Sansa basically just make Jon an official Stark the same way that Roose did to Ramsay in an official Bolton? You know, like, because she's the highest ranking Stark now, you know, her parents are dead, Robb is dead, Bran's still alive, but, you know, he's too young, you know, she's the one that's still, you know, higher ranking. Couldn't she just be like, you know what, you're now Jon Stark, and you have all that name and everything that comes with it. I'm just saying, couldn't she do that if she really wanted to? But I don't think I could get a hang of calling him Jon Stark anyway, so, you know, whatever, I guess it's for the best. The last thing she says to him here is that, of course, the White Raven had arrived from the Citadel, and that winter is now here! Winter has come! Oh my god, I know, I freaked out about it earlier. I'm just like, I can't get over how long we fucking waited for this shit, man! Oh. But now, onto my favorite scene of the episode, the meeting in Winterfell. We have all the vassal houses of the Starks there. We have Lady Lyanna Mormont, who is there. We have House Glover, House... I have to write these down. House Carwyn, House Mandalay. They're all there, and they're all discussing, you know, the war to come, you know, the events, why they didn't help them with the fight against the Boltons. And, you know, some of them had pretty decent, you know, reasons. Like, the leader of the House Mandalay was basically like, look, I gave my forces to Robb Stark. Look what happened there. I don't want any more Mandalays to die. It's not because I don't view you as a leader, it's just because I don't want more of my own people to die, because the North is kind of getting short already. I don't want this shit to get worse than it has to. But due to a speech by Lyanna Mormont, this little, like, 10-year-old kid drives, like, the fire under these guys, and they're just, like, they all pledge allegiance to Jon Snow, and, like, this epic scene, the music cues up, it's epic as hell. You have everyone pull out their swords, and, like, you know, House Mandalay pledges its allegiance to Jon Snow, the King of the North! Davros is there. Brief about that. They had to send Melisandre away. That's like the one thing I forgot up to this point. Davros confronted Jon about what she did to Shirin, Stannis' daughter, and basically Jon gave her the ultimatum of, you know, leave the North, ride south. If you ever come back here, I'm gonna kill you for murder. That's all we get there with Melisandre. She'll probably pop back up later on. I have no doubt in my mind with that. And, you know, it just gives you such a sense of hope that the North is now back. It has returned to its former glory. And they have a fighting force again. Jon is the recognized leader, and he's gonna do shit. It's gonna be a thing. Second to last scene, we have Cersei now becoming the new queen of the Seven Kingdoms, now that her son is now dead. And everybody, and it's a very kind of solemn scene, everybody in the entire fucking throne room does not look happy about this in the second. I mean, they, of course, have to do Hail the Queen and shit. Qyburn is the new Hand of the King, now that Kevon has died in the Septa Baelor explosion. But everybody is very clearly not happy with what's going on here now, and scared shitless at what Cersei's gonna do. Jaime arrives back in King's Landing just as she's being, you know, being coronated, and you see this scene with Jaime locking eyes with his sister, and it's just, he does not look happy at all. He does not seem pleased. He has this look on his face of just worry, and also just, what the fuck happened while I was gone? Like, what's gonna happen next? You know, now that you have all this absolute power, but also your kids are also dead, so anybody's guess what's going to go down with Cersei. Alright, so I think we covered everything up until the very end of the episode, which is Dany's part of the story, so let's cover that. We're done. It's going to be a long-ass frickin' retrospective, but alright. So, now we have Dany. She's in Meereen along with all her other forces waiting to gather ready to invade Westeros in just a huge fucking armada of ships. They now have the Tyrells, they have the Martells, they have the Greyjoys, they have all the ships they got from the slaves, from the masters. They're ready to go. She has a brief scene with Daario where she sends him away because of Tyrion's idea that you can't have a lover with you when you invade Westeros. It's just not a good idea. It's just going to come to bite you up in the ass later on. It makes sense. You know, Dany basically tells him you need to stay here and you need to keep watch over Meereen, the newly renamed Bay of Dragons. It's no longer Slaver's Bay, and you have to be the one to kind of, you know, maintain peace in the city. And it would make sense because Yeah, even though Daenerys was the one that liberated the city, I mean, we've seen what happened with Yonkai and all the other slave cities, that it's not as simple as just, we freed the city and now we can move on to the next city and that city will remain freed. I think the fear of Dany and her dragons would, suffice for a while if they weren't there, but after everyone figures out, wait a second, they're in fucking Westeros now, the dragons are gone, why are we even still doing this? So it makes perfect sense for Daario to stay there, brilliant tactical part on Tyrion's part there, and he is rewarded by Daenerys by being given the same pin for the hand of the queen in this instance. She got another one forged and she gave it to Tyrion. And this is just a match made in heaven. This is absolutely perfect. Daenerys ruling Westeros, Tyrion being the hand of the king, which is the absolute perfect choice for that job. Always has been, always fucking will be. And her armada of ships sailing to Westeros. We got a bunch of Targaryen flags flying. We got the Unsullied along with the ride. The Unsullied are all on the boat, and they're all just like statues, just ready to invade. We got the fucking Dothraki there. They have their horses with them, and they're just like, oh, I'm just so pumped for this. And the last scene of the episode is see Daenerys at the the lead ship along with Varys behind her, and Tyrion's there, and the dragons are flying, and just boom, end of the episode. And we finally get it. This is happening. Tyrion himself even said it was happening. He was just like, on the bright side, this is finally going down. The invasion's finally occurring. And do you ever know, Tyrion does not lie. Tyrion has never lied a single time in this entire show. But yeah, that is the episode recap of Season 6. Now, the way I would set it up to me, would be the next season, Season 7, would all be about the invasion of Daenerys and her forces in Westeros. Like, the entire bulk of that season would just be that. Maybe from episode 1 or 2 to the very end, because this is an ongoing thing. This isn't as simple as just they land in King's Landing and, oh, we've taken over the entire Seven Kingdoms. No, it's going to take a lot of work to do this. A lot of fighting is going to be had. A lot of politics are going to have to be had here. And they have to be tactical, because even though, they have the Force now, it's possible. It's not going to be an easy victory. It's not just going to be go in there, kill everyone, no fucking problem, no fuss, no fuss, no muss. So I would say either the second half of next season or the bulk of next season all be about the invading forces, and then the next season after that will be Season 8. That's when we get to whole, Daenerys is now the queen and everything, but she has to keep that title because that is when the White Walkers fucking invade, and then we have to deal with that, and that'll be the last major, huge fight we have to deal with the season before we end out the show. I could see that going down to maybe 2 seasons left, so maybe there'll be more than that, maybe there'll be less than that. I don't know how it's going to go down. I don't think they could squeeze out everything in next season, though. I don't think they're going to be able to squeeze out the end of, Daenerys' invasion of Westeros along with the White Walker invasion, but it's so cool that we can finally talk about this shit now. We're not sitting here anymore being like, oh, well, maybe next season the White Walkers are going to be, blah, 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 blah. No, it's done, all right? Dany's sailing toward Westeros. Big-ass armada. Winter is fucking come, all right? It's coming all over the place. You can't stop in winter, all right? It's going to come all over your fucking face. So, hope you guys enjoyed the recap. Tekking101, signing out. Den hail Jon Snow. From this day until our last day.